नमस्कार आदाबर्ज गुड इवनिंग आप सभी ख़वातीन हज़रात का मेरे चैनल में फिर एक मरतबा मैं तहे दिल से इस्तकबाल करता हूँ. Thank you everyone for joining me again on my channel. We will continue with Sahir Ludhianvi. There are a lot of poems to get through before I move on to some of my other favorite Urdu poets like Ahmed Faraz, Faiz Ahmed Faiz, Kaifi Azmi, Javed Akhtar, Mir Taqi Mir, Zauq, and of course Mirza Ghalib. We will get to those later. Now, my father and my mother showed me some of the messages that you guys have sent in appreciation. Thank you very much. मेरे वालिद साहब और वालिदा ने आपके जो messages आपने भेजे हैं वो मुझे दिखाए, बहुत बहुत खुशी हुई. बहुत शुक्रिया, तहे दिल से आपका बहुत तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ. My father has, if I remember correctly, my father has one of his childhood friends in the United States who is a vice president for IBM. Ramesh avare, nimdu message nodi tumbane khushi aaytu. First of all, ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಏನು ಸಾಹಿರ್ ಲುಧಿಯಾನ್ವಿದು ನನ್ನ ವಿಡಿಯೋಸ್ ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಿಮಗೆ ಸಾಹಿರ್ ಲುಧಿಯಾನ್ವಿದು ಹಳೆ ಹಾಡುಗಳನ್ನ ಕೇಳೋ ಆಸೆ ಬಂತು ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಕೇಳಿ, ನಿಮ್ಮದು ಪ್ರಶಂಸೆ ನೀವು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಕೇಳಿ ತುಂಬ ತುಂಬ ಖುಷಿ ಬಂತು. ತುಂಬ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾನು ಏನು ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಸಾಹಿರ್ ಲುಧಿಯಾನ್ವಿದು ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಹಾಡನ್ನ 3 ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಹಾಡು ಅದನ್ನು ನಾನು ಅದರದ್ದು ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಈ ಹಾಡುಗಳು ನಿಮಗೆ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಗೊತ್ತೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಹಾಡುಗಳು ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಮುಂಚೆ ಅವರು ನಜ್ಮನ್ ತಾನೇ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದು, ಅದನ್ನು ಅಡಾಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಫಿಲ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. So my father's friend who lives in the United States, Ramesh, sent a message to my dad saying that after seeing some of these videos, he felt like listening to Sahir's old songs again. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to read 3 of his old songs in their original form, one of which was actually used fully, and the other 2 were modified in films. So before I get into that, we will have to talk about which film, who, why. The 2 of them, Chakle and Ye Duniya Agar Mil Bhi Jaye To Kya Hai, both were used in Pyasa. Now, Pyasa is one of India's greatest films. One of the greatest films of the Indian film industry that we call Bollywood. Guru Dutt was one of our most visionary directors. He was someone far ahead of his time. He was active in the golden age of cinema, of Indian cinema. He made some of the most hard-hitting social films, and of course he also made fun films like Indian Noir, comedy films. But what he is most specifically known for are these 3 films: Pyasa in 1957, Kagaz Ke Phool before that, and Sahib Bibi Aur Ghulam 1958, 61, I don't really remember. Pyasa was nominated for an Oscar, did not win unfortunately. Guru Dutt made films that were close to his heart, about social issues, about progressive issues, and who better to partner him than the foremost social poet of that time, Sahir Ludhianvi. Now, to youngsters who are watching this video, if you go and watch Pyasa, you will be like, what is going on here? What is this? What kind of acting is this? What kind of shots are these? There is one thing that you have to keep in mind. Cinema evolves, and cinema always, everywhere, evolved from theater. In Maharashtra, in Bombay, at that time, theater was ruled by the Parsi community. So the kind of acting and the kind of music and the setup and everything that the Indian film industry borrowed it from Parsi theater. So some of the gamakas that you would see the actors do in their facial expressions, yes, you can use that word also for facial expressions in acting. And the very way of acting is strongly influenced by Parsi theater. Devika Rani, who ruled the Bombay talkies at that time, came from Parsi theater, right? Guru Dutt came from Karnataka. He was also involved in theater. He had a very close relationship with Geeta Dutt, who he went on to marry later, with Sahir Ludhianvi, with Majru Sultanpuri, S.D. Burman, and such legends, because no one else would do, right? His films, some of them did become popular, big hits, some of them didn't. But if you guys are interested in the golden era of Indian cinema, you should watch Guru Dutt's films. So Pyasa is a movie whose central theme is a poet. The main character, the protagonist, is a poet. Guru Dutt plays the role of the poet, and the other main character is the prostitute with the heart of gold. So the prostitute with the heart of gold appears as a motif in literature throughout and in movies. Taxi Driver, for example, one of the most famous movies of Hollywood, one of the greatest movies of all time, was centered around exactly this motif, and about the value of emotions, about the value of art, the value of literature, the value of poetry, the value of intangible cultural things rather than materialist pursuits. Wahida Rehman won a national award for this, if I remember correctly. Gulabo, the character of Gulabo, what a role, absolutely fantastic. And so in this movie, Sahir's nazms were adapted, and they were used because they're very topical. The themes that Sahir dealt with during this time are very topical to the theme of the movie. Now, Sahir was a very strong feminist, and this feminism arose in Sahir because of how he saw how his mother was treated during partition, how women were treated during and after partition. Back in the day, women of any religion for that matter were not really allowed to study as much as men. A lot of them were illiterate, and their only worth was in them just being a woman, and being a wife or a mother or a sister. They did not have an independent identity of their own. Even today, in a lot of cultures, you always, women are, this one's grandmother, this one's mother, that one's aunt, this one's mom. So he saw this objectification of women, and then in spite of us referring to women with such so-called platitudes, they're the first ones to be sold. What happens during war, during hard times, they're the first ones to be put on the chauraha, on the bazaar. And Sahir had deep problems with this. As I have also explained before, Sahir's father and mother were divorced, and Sahir himself had to choose at the age of 8 who he would want to live with, and he chose his mother. And then they had to cross the border from near Lahore to India, and she went through absolutely horrific time during the partition, and all these experiences, what he observed, left an indelible mark on his mindset and his growth as an empath, as a pacifist, as a feminist, and as someone who was deeply moved by these issues. So let's dive straight into Chakle. Now, you guys who have watched Pyasa or know Hindi songs would know this already. It is that famous song "Jinhe Naaz hai Hind par wo kahan hai" in Pyasa, where V.K. Murthy's cinematography. So V.K. Murthy was the cinematographer that Guru Dutt worked with on Sahib Bibi Aur Ghulam and Pyasa. Some of the shots and some of the techniques that V.K. Murthy came up with in playing with shadows and light are innovations that stand even today. Without V.K. Murthy, Pyasa would not be the movie that it is. Sahib Bibi Aur Ghulam would not be the movie that it is. Dark corridors, perspective shots of an empty haveli with peeling paint and dust suspended in sunbeams along these corridors. Such cinematographies, that play of shadow and light in Indian cinema, and close-up shots, sustained close-up shots of the characters when they are speaking. All these were pioneered at that time by V.K. Murthy in Indian cinema. In fact, Hollywood actually did this. Someone in Hollywood did this analysis. How, on average, how long is each cut of a movie and how has it evolved? In the 50s and the 60s, an average cut was around 10 to 11 seconds. Today, in today's Hollywood, one average cut is under 2 seconds. And 2 seconds is actually the higher end of that distribution. So you can see how there is just no time to develop cinematographically, augment the dialogues and the situation anymore because of, TikTok attention spans. So some of these lingering shots are a testament to the fact that the director said, you know what, I don't care. This is the story I want to tell. This is the way I want to tell that story. And this is the cinematographic choice that I will make. This is the textual choice that I will make. And being that brave in those times is a testament to the visionary that Guru Dutt was, the visionary V.K. Murthy was, the absolute visionary that Sahir Ludhianvi was. So, and none of this would have ever been possible without S.D. Burman. Now, remember that S.D. Burman also came from a classical background. He belonged to one of the royal families of Tripura. He was also active in the New Bengal music movement, right? Like Qazi Nazrul Islam, Rabindranath, as you call Nazrul Geet, Rabindra Geet, and a lot more artists were active at that time in West Bengal. This was the Bengali Renaissance that started in the 18th and 19th centuries. So S.D. Burman knew that if he arranges music for these nazms in this movie, like they were wont to do at that time. O.P. Nair famously would have a 150-piece orchestra. S.D. Burman too. No. S.D. did not do any such thing to this. A plaintive tune, one string that would only come, or one wind that would only come whenever there was a gap in the misra, a gap in the verses, and to set the pace, just a tabla. That's it. Only S.D. Burman could have done justice to such words. So, Jinhe Naaz hai Hind par wo kahan hai is actually known as Chakle. The word Chakle or Chakla means a whorehouse, a prostitute, where prostitutes do their business. And that's what he named this, because if you guys remember, this is the song where the main character, the Guru Dutt's character, the poet, is so hatash, he's so depressed, he's completely disillusioned by what he sees around him, and this entire song is one shot of him walking through these bazaars, And the cinematography paints what Sahir writes. So this is something that you have to watch. So in the movie, this was changed to Jinhe Naaz hai Hind par wo kahan hai, because this was very early after independence, right? 10 years after independence. And in the original Nazm, he attacks the keepers of all faith, those who call themselves the keepers of the faith. He attacks all of them. Maybe they thought that such an attack on religion was a bit too mature for India of that times. So Sahir does this, right? Sahir doesn't shy away from any of this. In fact, recently on the internet, someone came on my YouTube and left a comment which I had to delete, calling Sahir Ludhianvi a jihadi, calling Sahir Ludhianvi a radical. I mean, look, this kind of bullshit can only be talked by people who probably never read or even heard of what Sahir Ludhianvi wrote. He was a self-proclaimed atheist who got into trouble with both the Hindu orthodoxy, and he got into trouble with the Muslim orthodoxy, which means he did something right. So with that, keep that in mind, and then let's dive into Chakle. ये कूचे, ये नीलाम घर दिलकशी के, ये लुटते हुए कारवां जिंदगी के, कहाँ है मुहाफिज खुदी के, सना ख्वाए तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है. So in the song, in the movie, he says, ये कूचे ये नीलाम घर दिलकशी के, ये लुटते हुए कारवां जिंदगी के, कहाँ है मुहाफिज खुदी के, जिन्हें नाज है हिंद पर वो कहाँ है. Here he says, सना ख्वाए तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है. So taqdees means rituals or of religion. Mashriq is the east. Sanakhma et taqdees are people who swear by the rituals and the religions of the east and their superiority. When he says religions of the east, he means everything. All the Abrahamic religions are also Eastern religions, right? Basically all of them. He says, where are you guys? Where are you who proclaim loudly that you are the muhafiz khudi ke? Aap log khudi ke muhafiz hain, jo किसी चीज को जो महफूज रखते हैं, किसी चीज को प्रोटेक्शन में रखते हैं, उसको उन लोगों को मुहाफिज कहते हैं. ठीक है, क्योंकि ये अल्फाज जो आता है वो आया था हफीज से. जो हफीज होते हैं वो those were the ones who were the protectors of the Quran. So कहाँ है मुहाफिज खुदी के? Where are you, the protectors of your so-called protectors of religion? ठेका ले रखा है जिन लोगों ने दीन धर्म का, कहाँ है वो लोग? सना ख्वाए तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? ये पुरपेंच गलियां, ये बेख्वाब बाजार, ये गुमनाम राही, ये सिक्कों की झनकार, ये इस्मत के सौदे, ये सौदों पे तकरार, सना ख्वाए तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? पुरपेंच गलियां, complicated, all those winding streets of desolateness, dark streets, ये बेख्वाब बाजार, all these markets with bekhwab. Khwab is imagination or dream, that which you paint your mind with. So in this case, one can also read bekhwab bazaar as if you have a bazaar, you're selling things of different kinds, right? And in जब आप गजल कहते हैं, जब आप कोई नज्म कहते हैं, when you write a poem, you are putting in your imaginations on sale in the bazaar of ideas, right? So this is the metaphor, I think. Now we are doing a closed reading. We are not going to be those school kids who say, in पंक्तियों में कवि ये कहना चाहते हैं कि in this lines the poet wants to say no, let us not really, we've done the introduction, प्रसंग हमने कर लिया, let us do a closed व्याख्या. So ये पुरपेंच गलियां, ये बेख्वाब बाजार, ये गुमनाम राही, ये सिक्कों की झनकार. गुमनाम राही जो खोए हुए लोग होते हैं, people who are lost, राही travelers who are lost, ये सिक्कों की झनकार. Where does it come from? Because उन पे सौदे लगते हैं, उन पे कीमत लगती है, एक कीमत लगाई जाती है. A price is put on humans. ये पुरपेंच गलियां, ये बेख्वाब बाजार, ये गुमनाम राही, ये सिक्कों की झनकार, ये इस्मत के सौदे, इस्मत, रिस्पेक्ट, ग्रेस, डिग्निटी, ये इस्मत के सौदे, ये सौदों पे तकरार. Even your very dignity, your grace is put on sale, and then people who bid on it fight for it. सनाख्वाएं तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? मशरिक, ईस्ट, मगरिब, वेस्ट. तअफुन से पुर नीम रोशन ये गलियां, ये मसली हुई अध खिली जर्द कलियां, ये बिकती हुई खोखली रंग रलियां. सनाख्वाएं तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? तअफुन से पुर नीम रोशन ये गलियां. तअफुन is bad बदबू, bad smell. पुर, your puram, town. In fact, this is a Dravidian word. Ta'affun se pur neem roshan. Neem roshan is like very darkly lit. Neem roshan ye galiyan, ye masli hui adh khili zard kaliyan. Masli hui, they're assaulted, they're tod marod ke, they're pressed, they're squeezed up. Masli hui ardha, half bloom. These are little buds in half bloom. You know what he means by that? Ta'affun se purneem roshan ye galiyan, ye masli hui adh khili zard kaliyan, ye bikti hui khokli rang raliyan. Sanakhwaएं तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? All these pleasures of life that you buy in these bazaars, ye khokli, they're empty. Khokli rang raliyan. सनाख्वाएं तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? वो उजले दरीचों में पायल की छन छन. उजले दरीचे, windows of the whorehouses. ये उजले दरीचों में पायल की छन छन. तनफ्फुस की उलझन पे तबले की धन धन. तनफ्फुस is breathing, की उलझन पे तबले की धन धन. They are made to dance over and over and over again. ये बेरूह कमरों में खांसी की थन थन. बेरूह कमरे, जो तवायफ खाना होता है, तवायफ खाना, prostitution. So tawaifs were courtesans. The traditional translation would be courtesans. So these were not your whorehouses which were meant for, your aam aadmi. These were whorehouses that were meant for nobility, for nizams, for nawabs basically. And these courtesans were not just prostitutes. They were trained in Kathak, they were trained in classical singing, Sangeet, Shastriya Sangeet. They were high-class courtesans, right? Ta'affun se purneem roshan ye galiyan, ye masli hui adh khili zard kaliyan. So the thing is that these courtesans were trained to pleasure men from a very young age. It was not at all uncommon for a 12-year-old to be debuted in front of these nawabs who would then bid for her virginity. ये बिकती हुई खोखली रंग रलियां, सनख्वाएं तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? वो उजले दरीचों में पायल की छन छन. तनफ्फुस की उलझन पे तबले की धन धन. ये बेरूह कमरों में खांसी की थन थन. सनख्वाएं तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? ये गूंजे हुए कहे कहे रास्तों पर, ये चारों तरफ भीड़ सी खिड़कियों पर, ये आवाजें खींचते हुए आंचलों पर. सनाख्वां ए तकदीस ए मशरिक कहाँ है, कहे कहे noise of babbling noise, ये गूंजे हुए कहे कहे रास्तों पर, ये चारों तरफ भीड़ सी खिड़कियों पर. It connects to the previous line. These prostitutes, these courtesans, these women who are selling, who have no other way to survive in this post-independence or post-colonial world except to sell their bodies. And why? Because the men make them do it by not allowing. Well, the thing is, there is always a causation, right? So when you have poverty leads to a lot of things, and I will address exactly this in the next nazm, right? ये गूंजे हुए कह कहे रास्तों पर, ये चारों तरफ भीड़ खिड़कियों पर, this crowd ogling at these poor women, ये आवाज खींचते हुए आंचलों पर, सनाख्वां तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है. ये फूलों के गजरे, ये पैकों के छींटे, ये बेबाक नजरें, ये गुस्ताख फिक्रे, ये धड़के बदन और ये मदकूक चेहरे, सनाख्वां ए तकदीस ए मशरिक कहाँ है. Now here is the juxtaposition of what the reality of these people is vis-a-vis what it is presented as, what they are sold as. ये फूलों के गजरे, ये पैकों के छींटे, right? In all these men who would go to these tawaif khane to watch these mujras, they would wear gajra. A gajra is like what is it known as in English? A corsage. It's a corsage of flowers, that of jasmine flowers especially, that you put on your wrist. पैकों के छींटे पान खा खा के. So this is the motif. This is the archetype, in fact, of Nawabi Shauk. That's what they used to do, right? ये फूलों के गजरे, ये पैकों के छींटे, ये बेबाक नजरें. बेबाक is without any respect, those हवस भरी निगाहों से जिसको देखा, lustful eyes. ये बेबाक नजरें, ये गुस्ताख फिक्रें. गुस्ताख is very insolent things that you say, what we know as eve teasing, which is basically verbal assault, sexual assault. ये गुस्ताख फिक्रे is things that you say. ये ढलके बदन और ये मदकूक चेहरे, ढलके, emaciated, your ribs are showing. Why? और ये मदकूक चेहरे, मदकूक, tuberculosis. Sahir had very close experiences with tuberculosis. उनका एक उन्होंने अपने आंखों से देखा था. उनका एक ताल्लुक, एक जाति ताल्लुक था उनका, क्योंकि जब वो हाई स्कूल में थे, उनको एक लड़की मोहिंदर से इश्क हुआ था, और मोहिंदर का इंतकाल टीबी से, मदकूक से हुआ था जब वो सिर्फ 19 बरस की थी. और उन्होंने बंटवारे के दौरान, तकसीम के दौरान बहुत tuberculosis देखा था. So Sahir Ludhianvi has a very personal relationship with tuberculosis. When he was in high school, he was in love with this girl called Mohinder, and she died of tuberculosis when they were just 19. And because he was brought up in a Muslim family and she was brought up in a Hindu Punjabi family, he was not even allowed to go to her funeral. And then he had written this beautiful nazm, Marghat ki Zameen se, from the funeral grounds, which maybe we will do some other day. And then during partition, he saw a lot of tuberculosis, and in those times, tuberculosis had no cure. And when you put illegally, without any standardization, without any health, without any care for health, nutrition, women who have been trafficked from so many different poor families, and you put them into these whorehouses, it was in these whorehouses that tuberculosis was endemic. It spread like wildfire in these places. So that's what he points at. ये फूलों के गजरे, ये पैकों के छींटे, ये बेबाक नजरे, ये गुस्ताख फिक्रे, ये ढलके बदन और मदकूक चेहरे, सनख्वां ए तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? ये भूखी निगाहें हसीनों की जानिब तरफ, in their direction, मतलब जिस तरफ देख रहे हैं, तरफिया, it's not a physical direction, but it's you have an inclination towards them. ये भूखी निगाहें, these hungry eyes, हसीनों की जानिब, these hungry eyes always looking at these beauties. ये बढ़ते हुए हाथ सीनों की जानिब, and all these grabby hands, grabbing the breasts of these women. ये भूखी निगाहें हसीनों की जानिब, ये बढ़ते हुए हाथ सीनों की जानिब, लपकते हुए पांव जीनों की जानिब. And this is the consequence when these poor women trafficked and without any will of their own, no way to freedom. When hungry eyes look at them day after day after day, and these lustful hands and these grabby hands assault them, take liberties with them, just they have paid for their body, day after day after day, lapakte hue unke paanv zinon ki janib, that these legs, they go in the direction of the ladder. Why? To climb up and fall down. Khudkushi. This is the only way of freedom that is left for them. ये भूखी निगाहें हसीनों की जानिब, ये बढ़ते हुए हाथ सीनों की जानिब, लपकते हुए पांव जीनों की जानिब, सनख्वां ए तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? Right? And then he says, यहां पीर भी आ चुके हैं, जवां भी, तनोमंद बेटे भी, अब्बा मियां भी. पीर, wise men, आ चुके हैं, जवां भी. From the old wise men, religious men that you talk about, तुम्हारे पीर बाबा, वो भी आ चुके हैं इन्हीं तवाइफ खानों में, तमार खानों में. जवां लोग भी आ चुके हैं, दोनों ही आते हैं. Both of them come. तनोमंद बेटे भी, अब्बा मियां भी, even hale and hearty youth and their fathers, both of them end up here. ये बीवी भी है और बहन भी है, मां भी. But look, but you call her that she's a wife and she's a sister and she's a mother. And yet यहां पीर भी आ चुके हैं, जवां भी, तनोमंद बेटे भी, अब्बा मियां भी, ये बीवी भी है, बहन भी और मां भी. सनाख्वां है तकदीस मशरिक कहां है? मदद चाहती है ये हव्वा की बेटी, यशोदा की हमजिन्स राधा की बेटी. She needs help. This daughter of Eve, this daughter of Yashoda, this daughter of Radha, they need help. पैगंबर की उम्मत जुलेखा की बेटी मदद चाहती है, ये हव्वा की बेटी, यशोदा की हमजिन्स राधा की बेटी. पैगंबर की उम्मत, she is the community of the पैगंबर, of the prophet. पैगंबर की उम्मत जुलेखा की बेटी. Zulekha. So this is an interesting reference and an interesting story. There is a biblical story of Yusuf or Joseph, not the same Joseph as Jesus' father or Yeshua's or Isa's father. Another Joseph. He was a servant to Potiphar, a rich Judean businessman at that time. His wife was called Zulekha. And Zulekha fell in love with the young Joseph. But he resisted her over and over and over again because she was married to someone else. One day, she grabbed hold of him to stop him from leaving and tore off his parahan, his shirt. And Joseph saw that and he asked her for an explanation. So you see, here the roles are turned. And that is why he brings this reference in here. Sahir's breadth of knowledge of scripture, of science, of sociology, of politics is absolutely huge. I mean, his range is insane. मदद मदद चाहती है ये हव्वा की बेटी, ईव्स डॉटर, यशोदा की हमजिन्स, राधा की बेटी, पयंबर की उम्मत जुलेखा की बेटी, सनाख्वा ए तकदीस ए मशरिक कहाँ है? बुलाओ बुलाओ खुदाया दीन को बुलाओ, बुलाओ बुलाओ खुदाया दीन को बुलाओ. Khudaya, so Khuda is God, Khudaya, gods. Bulao, call all your gods, call everyone. And if anyone tells me again that Sahir was a Muslim poet or he was a religious poet, this line that he writes is a cardinal sin against Islam, referring to gods in the plural. Khudaya deen ko bulao. He's committing the highest offense in Islam, which is shirk. Is it shirk or whatever? Yeah, it's accepting that there are other gods, or even referring to them. So please don't spread this kind of propaganda against a national treasure like him, who ran from Punjab, came to India and settled in Bombay with his mother. बुलाओ खुदाया दीन को बुलाओ, ये कूचे ये गलियां ये मंजर दिखाओ, सना ख्वाए तकदीस मशरिक को लाओ. सना ख्वाए तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है? बुलाओ खुदाया दीन को बुलाओ. Bring all of them. What are they doing? They're gods for what? They're just sitting there looking at all of this. We will get to, there is a philosophical trilemma which we can talk about sometime later. ये कूचे ये गलियां ये मंजर दिखाओ, सनाख्वाए तकदीस मशरिक को लाओ. Call them, call those who claim themselves to be the protectors of these religions. Call them. सनाख्वाए तकदीस मशरिक कहाँ है when all of this happens? So this is Chakle. Now, in the same theme, let us go to the other one. This was again sung by Muhammad Rafi. And this hits you even harder. It's called Aurat ne janam diya mardon ko. So he says, Aurat ne janam diya mardon ko, mardon ne use bazar diya. Jab ji chaha masla kuchla, jab ji chaha dhudkar diya. It's the women who birthed men. And what did men give them? The market, bazaar. Jab ji chaha masla kuchla, jab ji chaha dhudkar diya. Whenever you wanted, you oppressed her. Whenever you wanted, you dismissed her. तुलती है कहीं दिनारों में, बिकती है कहीं बाजारों में, नंगी नचवाई जाती है याशों के दरबारों में. ये वो बेइज्जत चीज है जो बट जाती है इज्जतदारों में. औरत ने जन्म दिया मर्दों को, मर्दों ने उसे बाजार दिया. तुलती है कहीं दिनारों में. She is weighed against gold, coins of money. So she's an object whose worth is weighed in gold. तुलती है कहीं दिनारों में, बिकती है कहीं बाजारों में. She is sold in these markets. ये वो बेइज्जत चीज है जो बट जाती है इज्जतदारों में. नंगी नचवाई जाती है याशों के दरबारों में. ये वो बेइज्जत चीज है जो बट जाती है इज्जतदारों में. This is the respectless thing that you call, and you divide it, or you divide her among so-called इज्जतदार, among the so-called respectable. औरत ने जन्म दिया मर्दों को, मर्दों ने उसे बाजार दिया. मर्दों के लिए हर जुल्म रवा, औरत के लिए रोना भी खता, मर्दों के लिए हर ऐश का हक, औरत के लिए जीना भी सजा। मर्दों के लिए लाखों सेजें, औरत के लिए बस एक चिता। औरत ने जन्म दिया मर्दों को, मर्दों ने उसे बाजार दिया। मर्दों के लिए हर जुल्म रवा। Every oppression that the man commits against the woman is okay, is allowed. औरत के लिए जीना भी सजा, औरत के लिए रोना भी खता, and she shouldn't even cry because if she cries, यार हर जब देखो रोती रहती है और तो कुछ है नहीं करने को, है ना? मर्दों के लिए हर ऐश का हक, औरत के लिए जीना भी सजा. And this has happened across different religions, across cultures. Male children get a lot of freedom to do whatever they want to do, but women children are the ones who are held, who are always known as kisi ki bahu, kisi ki beti, and a price is put on their chastity. मर्दों के लिए लाखों सेजें, औरत के लिए एक चिता. Men can sleep in how many ever beds they want, but where does a woman end up? One funeral pyre. औरत ने जन्म दिया मर्दों को, मर्दों ने उसे बाजार दिया. जिन सीनों ने इनको दूध दिया, उन सीनों को व्यापार किया. जिस कोक में इनका जिस्म ढला, उस कोक को कारोबार किया. जिस तन से उगे कोपल बनकर, उस तन को जलीलो ख्वार किया. संसार की हर एक बेशर्मी गुर्बत की गोद में पलती है. चकलों ही में आकर रुकती है, फाकों से जो राह निकलती है. मर्दों की हवस है जो अक्सर औरत के पाप में ढलती है. लेट्स ब्रेक दिस डाउन. जिन सीनों ने इनको दूध दिया, उन सीनों को ही व्यापार किया. The very breasts that nourished you, you put them on sale. जिस कोक में इनका जिस्म ढला, उस कोक को कारोबार किया. That very coke, that very stomach that gave you life and form, you put that up for sale. जिस तन से उगे कोपल बनकर, कोपल, little leaflet, the first two leaves that sprout out of a seedling. That's a कोपल. जिस तन से उगे कोपल बनकर, उस तन को जलीलो ख्वार किया. जलील बेइज्जती, उसको stripping them of dignity and respect. जिस तन से उगे कोपल बनकर, उस तन को जलीलो ख्वार किया. संसार की हर एक बेशर्मी गुर्बत की गोद में पलती है. Comes it every such indecency, it is the genesis of it is poverty, lack of resources. It is this poverty that can change, or the other side, it's the money that can turn something from indecent to decent and vice versa. संसार की हर एक बेशर्मी गुर्बत की गोद में पलती है. गुर्बत would be overseas. Correct me if I'm wrong, because the aspirated versus unaspirated consonants are very important in Farsi and Urdu pronunciation. So गुर्बत में हो अगर हम, रहता है दिल वतन में, मालूम क्या किसी को रश्के जिना हमारा, is what Allama Iqbal wrote. And this is गुर्बत. संसार की हर एक बेशर्मी गुर्बत की गोद में पलती है. चकलों ही में आकर रुकती है, फाकों से जो राह निकलती है. चकले, whore houses, चकलों ही में आकर रुकती है, फाकों से जो राह निकलती है. जो from desolate slums, the roads that leave, they come and end up in the whore houses. मर्दों की हवस है जो अक्सर औरत के पाप में ढलती है. It is the हवस, it is the lust of men that ends up in the sin of women. औरत ने जन्म दिया मर्दों को, मर्दों ने उसे बाजार दिया. औरत संसार की किस्मत है, फिर भी तकदीर की हेटी है. और अवतार पैगंबर जन्नती है, फिर भी शैतान की बेटी है. ये वो बदकिस्मत माँ है जो बेटों के सेज पे लेटी है. This is how strongly he feels about women, about his mother. That's why he was so close to his mother. Right? Now, we come to the last one of his nazms that was taken line by line into Pyasa. And this is one of my favorite cinematic moments. So I can tell you the denouement. I can tell you what exactly happens, but you have to watch this movie because this last scene is a twist in the tale. So the iconic scene in Indian cinema where you have this huge theater with terraced seats in their arc, like an amphitheater built up, and people are saying hollow words on stage, and then you have the door open and a beam of light emerge like from the heavens that is illuminating one straight path, and there you have Gurudat standing with his hands stretched apart in this light. It evokes, it is deliberately to evoke a famous incident, whether it happened or not, which is the crucifixion of Christ. And him being the light or whatever. I mean, if you strip away the religious tones from this is what the picturization is about. This is what that visual metaphor is about, at least in my closed reading. And it makes sense, and you should watch that. And this is called, and this is his lament. This is where he ends up. This is where he goes to a more of an existentialist, more of a nihilist philosopher with this song, and that means ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है, right? What if you achieve everything in this world? So what? ये महलों, ये तख्तों, ये ताजों की दुनिया, ये इंसान के दुश्मन समाजों की दुनिया, ये दौलत के भूखे रिवाजों की दुनिया, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? महलों, पैलेसेस, तख्त, थ्रोन, ताज, crown, ये महलों, ये तख्तों, ये ताजों की दुनिया, that world of power struggles, ये इंसान के दुश्मन समाजों की दुनिया, these societies themselves are an enemy of humanity. ये दौलत के भूखे रिवाजों की दुनिया, रिवाज, rituals, रीत और रिवाज, culture. But all those cultures have now come down to what? Just money. ये दौलत के भूखे रिवाजों की दुनिया, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? हर एक जिस्म घायल, हर एक रूह प्यासी, निगाहों में उलझन, दिलों में उदासी, ये दुनिया है अब आलम बदहवासी, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? हर एक जिस्म घायल, you're injured not only physically, हर एक रूह प्यासी, even your soul is thirsting for some meaning. What are you injured by? What is your soul or your consciousness or your conscience thirsty for? It is thirsty for humanity. It is thirsty for human relations and not material money, you know. हर एक जिस्म घायल, हर एक रूह प्यासी, निगाहों में उलझन, दिलों में उदासी, ये दुनिया है या आलम बदहवासी? आलम, universe or alam realm of badhavasi is this havas? Badhavasi is just depression. ये दुनिया है या आलम बदहवासी? ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? यहां एक खिलौना है इंसान की हस्ती, ये बस्ती है मुर्दा परस्तों की बस्ती, यहां पर तो जीवन से है मौत सस्ती, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? इंसान की हस्ती, the stature of man, the respect and dignity of man is a toy here. ये बस्ती है मुर्दा परस्तों की बस्ती, मुर्दा परस्त, मुर्दा, डेड, परस्त, worshippers of the dead. ये बस्ती है मुर्दा परस्तों की बस्ती, बस्ती विलेज कम्युनिटी सेटलमेंट. यहां पर तो जीवन से है मौत सस्ती. Death is more expensive than living in this place. ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? जवानी भटकती है बदकार बनकर, जवान जिस्म सजते हैं बाजार बनकर, यहां प्यार होता है व्यापार बनकर. ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? जवानी भटकती है बदकार बनकर. Youth is just aimlessly roaming around with nothing to look forward to. जवान जिस्म सजते हैं बाजार बनकर. Young bodies are being painted, made up to be sold. That's their only, वही एक उनका आखिरी मकाम है. That's their end point. यहां प्यार भी होता है तो व्यापार बनकर. Even that is not real. ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? ये दुनिया जहां आदमी कुछ नहीं है, वफा कुछ नहीं, दोस्ती कुछ नहीं है, जहां प्यार की कद्र ही कुछ नहीं है, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? In this world, when man is nothing, loyalty is nothing, friendship is nothing, relations are nothing, जहां प्यार की कद्र ही कुछ नहीं है, when love, and he's not talking about romantic love here at all. So one thing you have to understand is, when Sahir Ludhianvi or such poets in the Urdu tradition write about ishq or pyar, unless it is specifically meant for your ashik or your mehboob, this is a universal love that he's talking about, the love between insan se insan ka nata. In that also in Parchaiyan also he writes, right? Na dosti, na takhallus, na dilbari, na khulus. आज यहाँ किसी का कोई नहीं, आज सब अकेले हैं. He writes that in Parchaiyan, and here he says, ये दुनिया जहां आदमी कुछ नहीं है, वफा कुछ नहीं, दोस्ती कुछ नहीं है, जहां प्यार की कद्र, रेस्पेक्ट, वैल्यू, जहां प्यार की कद्र ही कुछ नहीं है, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? And then he just loses it. He's come to this nihilistic end point. He's come to his nihilism where he says, जला दो इसे, फूंक डालो ये दुनिया, मेरे सामने से हटा दो ये दुनिया, तुम्हारी है, तुम ही संभालो ये दुनिया. ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? And all of these also come from his collection called Kulliyate Sahir. And Ramesh avare, nimgoಸ್ಕರ ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಈ ಮೂರು ಹಾಡುಗಳು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಕಾವ್ಯಗಳು, ಅದನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಹಿಂದಿ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ದ ಒಂದು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇನ್ನು ಮುಂದೆ ಇನ್ಯಾವುದಾರ ಒಂದು ಈ ತರ ಹಿಂದಿ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಇಂದು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟವಾಗಿರೋದು ಕಾವ್ಯ ಇದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ನಾನು ಅದರದ್ದು ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯೆ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. So I will move on to more of Sahir Ludhianvi's social poems in the future, and also then address some poems by people like Ahmad Faraz and Fayaz, because there is one revolutionary, beautiful poem that has been misused by stripping it of necessary lines on both sides of the border, and we will get to that one too. Urdu poetry has always been, since its inception, the poetry of social commentary, of progress, of humanity. And please read more Urdu poetry, even if it is just reading Hindi song lyrics of Sahir Ludhianvi, Majrooh Sultanpuri, Shailendra, and all such greats. You should do it. And so with this, shukriya, adab, namaskar.